bridging the gap through continuous improvement. We're going to talk about how you can effectively use a comprehensive needs assessment process as part of your overall strategic plan or school improvement process. Many of you have seen this housekeeping slide, so we just ask you to, follow the instruction here. Mute your computer. If you could turn your camera function off, and most importantly, if you've got questions or comments, if you could put them in the chat box. And also please be advised that this session is being recorded. So as I shared, this is our presentation, Bridging the Gap Through Continuous Improvement. I'll be co-presenting with my colleague, Devetta Bradley, who is also an education associate, who will introduce herself. I've been with the agency since December of 2020. I have 35 years in public education, working as a classroom teacher, as a building administrator, as a district level administrator, and even a superintendent. I've been through many continuous improvement processes, and I'm happy to share the process that we have here at the South Carolina Department of Education with you today. Our goal then today is really just to give you an overview of the continuous or our comprehensive needs assessment process, and really to share with you the fact that we are here to help. This is something that really can require a deep dive and support, and the agency is here to provide support to districts to do that. Having a really successful comprehensive needs assessment can be a lot of work, and it can require support. And so again, that's where we can come in and be part of that process with you. I'm not sure it's ever been more important to have a school improvement process that would be strategic and truly be engaging and something that can help your students, as what we're going through right now and what we're been through for the past year. The innovation and support team, of which we're members, Devetta and myself, work within the Office of Federal and State Accountability in the department. And you've heard lots of presentations over the last 2.5 days talk about working with compliance, but then we want to take those step ups to quality and to engagement. And so our process is to make sure, again, that this is really meaningful and moves the needle for your students. This is a graphic that is probably you're familiar with. It's the South Carolina, the profile for the South Carolina graduate. It's the vision of State Superintendent Molly Spearman and our department that all students graduate prepared for success, whether that's in college, careers, or just in citizenship. We certainly believe that all students can learn, but one of the other things is that all education systems can improve. And so I think our presentation today could help districts and schools look at the process of a comprehensive needs assessment within the scope of your school improvement plan to really make a difference. So this graphic will show you or gives you some of the ideas behind what is in this profile, but there's also a underpinning document called the Competencies for the Profile of a South Carolina Graduate. Devetta has put a link to that document in the chat box. So that'll be available. If you're not familiar with that yet, please take a look. So our agenda for today is that we're going to review the South Carolina Department of Education Vision and Improvement Model, the comprehensive needs assessment being just one part of that. We're going to share a definition and the purpose of having a needs assessment. We'll look at the elements and the phases of a needs assessment. And we're going to look at district opportunities through a needs assessment. When you do this work, you really are rolling your sleeves up and really getting down to the important things that will happen in a district. One of the analogies for doing a needs assessment is it's making a roadmap. If you were to take your family on vacation and you had a destination but no map to get there, it may not go well. This roadmap will give your district that opportunity, and that work is so inherent in the process of school improvement that I think you'll find there are lots of opportunities to grow and to create an even better culture through this work. We have a brand new resource that will be being released soon that we've developed through our office, and we're going to share that information, the resource portal, and then also just share the resources that we use in order to develop this presentation. So a needs assessment is something that you've heard over the last 3 days and maybe you're familiar with before, that is required through some of the federal programs and our state programs as well. So we talk about a comprehensive needs assessment in the sense that you need to do one for many of the aspects of your work. And we think it's best if you could do one that's comprehensive and deep enough that it will be able to provide you with what you need for any of these programs, whether they're federal programs or state programs. So within the South Carolina School Improvement Model, one of the first step is to do a needs assessment. Currently in our regulate or in our agency improvement planning, we have an executive summary that's used for part of that. One of the things I want you to make you aware of is that we are going to be in the process of developing a tool that will have a little more guidance and a little more support for those districts that need it when they're doing their needs assessment. You can see the definition there. It's really just looking at the key deficiencies and then providing prioritized recommendations for that improvement. Again, it's a deep dive to do a needs assessment. The next part of it would be the intervention and the focused improvement. You're going to look at what specific things you need to support your district, and it needs to be autonomous to your district or to your schools. And then you need to look at implementing those evidence-based practices, monitoring them, and continuing with that cycle. Within that cycle, innovation is part of it too. I think anytime you take a deep dive into your school and you look at opportunities for improvement, innovation is something that you'd like to add as a part of that process. And the last two, I think, go together, the last two steps, the idea that an increased state capacity, we want to focus on more than just compliance. We want to increase collaboration around school improvement with all your stakeholders, with your educators, the teachers, your staff, your students, your parents, maybe your business community. I think the more ownership and the more buy-in and trust that you have to this process, the better chance you have of making this really impactful for student growth. And then stakeholder participation. We want to be part of helping make sure all those necessary stakeholders are available and at the table. This graphic then just kind of illustrates that improvement model. You can see there are layers to it. On the outside, the idea that leadership, culture, building capacity, and effective instruction are all very important parts of looking at school improvement. And then you see the 6 steps from diagnosing, which is the needs assessment, selecting those interventions that you're going to use, planning to implement them, putting the implementation in place, monitoring and evaluating, and revising. It's a continuous cycle, as you can see in the center, for continuous improvement. And the needs assessment, we think, is the vital part of getting that on track. So why conduct a needs assessment? Well, schools are complex. Educational systems, there are lots of pieces and parts that go to that. And I think if you get into a deep dive as to what are the challenges that you have and what are using a data to understand your system, it really can help you start to make that plan. The goal then, too, is once you've done that deep dive, you may find that there are multiple areas that you could work on or could use for some improvement. And I think you've got to prioritize those. It's another aspect of this process, though, that where the stakeholder involvement is really important, because if you can, in a larger group with a inclusive amount of stakeholders, make that determination of what are those prioritized needs. Again, that ownership and buy-in to improve it is going to be very, very strong. So what is a needs assessment? It's a process. What it's not just the report that you do. It's not 50 pages of charts and graphs and data that no one's really taken a deep dive with. It's not just your state test scores. It's more than that. It's a process of working together as a group of stakeholders and really focusing on the why, and that is student learning and student improvement and student growth. So that needs assessment is defined then as that examination of the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. And that process is important, that it's thorough. So needs assessments have been around for a long time. Folks have done them. I think some people have done them well. Maybe some people haven't done them as well. So what are the challenges? What are the barriers for your district or your school to have a successful needs assessment? The first is the lack of time. We've talked about that we want to do a comprehensive needs assessment. And so our goal is that if you can do it well and do it once, that you can overcome that lack of time. The insufficient tools. You may have a description of what a needs assessment could look like, but no concrete tools to get you there. That's one of the places where we come into play in the agency, is we can provide help and assistance in that area. Asking wrong questions. When you do a needs assessment and you truly want to get to the areas that will impact student learning, I think you've got to ask some tough questions. Having worked as a superintendent, it's interesting to be sitting at the table with those stakeholders and kind of expose yourself to the idea of what aren't we doing well? What are some of the things that we can do more effectively? And having those really authentic and really changing questions, or having those questions answered. So the other thing that I think can be a challenge is jumping to solutions. It's easy because of that lack of time, or because you didn't ask the right questions, to try to come up with a solution before you really understand the problem. An example could be trying to tackle literacy. There are so many components to early literacy as one example. And one way to tackle it may be to provide a new initiative where you've got a different resource, you've done some training with your staff, and you're going to move forward with that process. And that's a great start, but that may not be understanding the full scope of the problem. What's going on within your literacy program that could be challenged or that could be improved that you didn't address within just that general overview. And then ineffective implementation is certainly a challenge, making sure that once you've made all those determinations that the implementation is done well. So there are 4 elements to a successful needs assessment. It needs to be a needs-driven, and context-specific approach. The idea being there, it's got to be authentic to your school or to your district. It really has to meet the needs and align to your challenges. And then within the context-specific approach. And so, like I mentioned with that early literacy, it may be that your district's literacy challenges are due to the students coming into kindergarten not prepared. That may be the first challenge that you have. It could be because your intervention programs aren't as strong or your coaching model isn't working, versus another district that may have some of the same challenges but could have a completely different context. That rigorous data analysis, we'll talk more about that here in a minute, but that's very important. Stakeholder engagement we've talked about, which really goes hand in hand with that collaborative identification of improvement needs. And so that's working with everybody, creating that ownership and that buy-in so that when you do go to implement, everybody's on board. So the needs-driven really is building it around a framework that defines what those problems are specifically, the topics and the questions to be addressed, so that you know that your needs are aligned, that needs assessment will align your plan with your real challenges. And then context-specific, it just really has to reflect that local context. And I think, again, multiple stakeholders really help you define that challenge. So there are educational factors that you should look at in you're doing that data analysis. And we listed some of them here, an aligned curriculum, having effective instruction, making sure you have strong leadership, that there's supports for students and teachers, that your climate is safe and positive. Any one of these can be a major factor, even though you may have implemented a program that is research-based and evidence-based. Some of these other factors that you can see here on the screen can definitely impact the ability of those to have the effect that you'd like them to have. So rigorous data analysis is important. It should begin by looking at student achievement data, both overall and for groups. And you need to add context in this situation. So as I used as an example earlier, early literacy, or literacy in general. Let's just say you had a lower passage rate on the SC Ready state test for the 3rd or 4th grade. What are the subgroup scores? Is it an overall problem, or is it just certain subgroups? Does this situation, do you see that data going up or down from the previous grades, or then the grades that follow after that? What are the summative scores throughout the year? Is this a predictable problem? Do you have data during the year that can help you understand that? Do you have intervention programs? Are the students or the subgroup, are they getting what they need, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom? Have you done some of the literacy professional learning that you need to do? And all of those questions that you'll ask, again, you've got to ask those tough questions so that you can get to a more focused idea of what the data is telling you about your district. So that data should come from multiple data types and multiple viewpoints so that it is diverse. It's got to be diverse enough and high quality enough that you can truly get, again, to that deep dive. And I know I've mentioned that a couple times, but it really is important. If you only do a cursory look at your data, it's going to be easy to miss the mark with what you're going to implement for your programs. So sources of information. There are lots of sources of information. One of the things I said a needs assessment is it's not just your state test scores. Those certainly should be included, but it should be a lot more than that. So we've got some lists here. I don't know if anybody wants to, if you'd like to go into the chat, maybe share with the group some of the sources of information that you've used that have been impactful in your data analysis. Stakeholder engagement. I've talked about the fact that this has to be done with local stakeholders. You see highlighted in that first bullet, the broad knowledge base. You really want to have as many folks at the table as you can so that you've got that diversity, so that people with their different lenses are seeing what your challenges really are, and so that you can have a deep and meaningful discussion about what are those challenges, what's most strategic, and what you're going to address first. And then the second bullet point, I think, is really the important one, is that you develop trust in the process when stakeholders are there. If they're part of understanding the challenges within your district, they're going to be very, very invested in making sure those outcomes happen. Too many times when needs assessments are done, I think they're done by the administrative team. It's not as diverse a set of lenses as it can be, and it's rolled out, and in some cases the educators and other stakeholders, they don't even understand how they came about to that idea, and they certainly aren't as invested or trust in the process like they could. So, and the last part of it is those collaborative, that identification of improvement needs. Again, this is that prioritizing, the idea that you will need to prioritize the challenges that you have in your district so that you can make sure that you're doing a few things well versus a lot of things not so well. So that concludes my part of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Devetter Bradley, who is going to take it from here.
Good morning, all. And as we continue with this process, we will begin with the phases of implementation. The needs assessment process is implemented across 5 discrete phases: plan, collect and organize data, interpret information, determine priorities, and connect to implementation. So we'll begin with plan. Why are we engaging in the needs assessment? What are we hoping the impact will be at the classroom level, at the building level, and even as systems in our organization? Therefore, we have to define the purpose of the needs assessment, then determine what are the intended outcomes within the local context. We have to determine those guiding questions that the needs assessment should answer. However, these particular guiding questions will be used at other levels of the needs assessment process. So it's not something that you're just creating just to look at for that moment. Every related activity within the needs assessment should have actions established, constructed timelines, and specific responsibilities. Every person, whether school, district, or community members, should be identified, invited, and engaged in the entire needs assessment process. As Pat mentioned earlier, those multiple stakeholders, that part is very crucial in everything that you're going to do with your needs assessment. Also, remember, within the planning phase, you have to articulate the content. What does the needs assessment cover? Articulate the process, how the needs assessment will be accomplished, and articulate the presentation, how the results will be conveyed. Then we will collect and organize data. Data are a foundational component of any needs assessment process. What data sources align with the guiding questions are readily available from existing sources, whether it be state databases or local data. What additional data are needed to fully explore the guiding questions, and how can that data be collected, whether surveys, focus groups, and or interviews? That raw data needs to be organized in a way that is useful to draw conclusions and identify improvement needs. During this phase of the needs assessment, data are collected in various forms and organized and presented for interpretation. Multiple forms meaning qualitative data. It describes qualities or characteristics. You have your quantitative data that can be observed or recorded, your input data, which is data the computer receives, your output data, which is data the computer sends, and you also have your demographic data, which refers to socioeconomic information. So then we interpret the information that we receive. Then we interpret the okay, it went too far. Then we interpret the information that we receive. What is it that various data sources say about these particular guiding questions that the needs assessment is trying to answer? During this phase, educators examine relevant data to create meaningful information by collaboration with multiple stakeholders to ensure that the identified needs are integrated within the local context. Remember, multiple stakeholders. It's not just about the administrative team that's in your building. Collaborating with stakeholders who are responsible for carrying out the next steps from the needs assessments further ensures that data are understood within what is realistic for local implementation. As Pat said earlier, with all of those stakeholders at the table working through this process, that creates a greater buy-in for what it is that you're trying to do. But then you have to realize, are there places in which the data sources disagree with each other or present a perspective difference from your own? How can underlying causes of these differences be explored? All of that has to be seeked out. Can the data a computer receives, the data the computer sends, the socioeconomic information be cross-checked to develop a comprehensive understanding? The data presentation and interpretation process should also support triangulation of data points from different sources, voices, or forms of data. That triangulation produces more reliable outcomes and help participants determine stronger theme within the data that you have. So now that we have interpreted our data, we get to the part of a needs assessment where we see multiple needs or multiple issues. And with these multiple areas that you may be deficient in, you have to determine what is the priority. In order to achieve successful outcomes, we must direct improvement efforts toward a manageable set of priorities. It has to be something that you can actually do realistically, but it has to be something that really needs to be done at this time. What are the priorities? Are they realistic? Is it specific? Is it attainable at this particular time? Because sometimes it's not, and you have to decide what is and what isn't. What findings or themes emerge that, if addressed right now, will have the greatest potential for impact on student outcomes? Then check for voices or sources that need to be considered to make informed decisions about priorities and capacity for implementation. Multiple stakeholders. As we've said time and time again, those multiple stakeholders are key. So then that moves us to our last phase, connect to implementation. How will the needs assessment results be used to drive meaningful long-term change? What additional information is needed about the needs assessment results or the underlying causes to create meaningful long-term change? This final phase of the needs assessment take the results of the needs assessment and turn those results into something that's actionable. What can we do to address the needs we have? What can we implement? Educators need a deep understanding of the root causes so they can be connected to relevant goals and incorporated into an improvement or an action plan. Until you identify the core issue of what is taking place, the surface issues will continue to occur. You have to identify those root causes. What is the core? Why is this going on? Priorities drive the selection of the evidence-based strategies or interventions. How will they be implemented? How improvement will be evaluated and measured along the way? What need, if addressed effectively, will give you the biggest bang for your buck as it pertains to student achievement? Then connecting with implementation is critical to realizing change as a result of the needs assessment process. So then that brings us to collaboration and support. There are some actions that have taken place. You are ensured a high quality needs assessment. You will have the opportunities to set goals at the district level and provide autonomy to schools to use the needs assessment process to develop strategies and actions to achieve the established goals. That autonomy provided to schools will show your buy-in of the process. This isn't just something else to do, but something that all those who are involved can benefit from. You can work with schools to help ensure that their needs assessments are focused on the issues of greatest importance. Assistance will be needed to ensure that schools are focused on those needs that are determined by the needs assessment. You can facilitate sharing and presentation of district level data, develop data reporting templates for common use. Support the inclusion of the variety of data sources. Assist data collection efforts with district resources and connection. If it cannot be said enough that variety of data sources has to be used. It's not just about one particular test score. It's not just about one pieces of information talking about in reference to, it could be attendance. It has to be a variety of data sources. Then you can actually bring schools together to focus on related concerns or priorities in order to pool experiences and resources. When we have those common priorities noted within schools of the same districts, they can network, collaborate with each other, and gather resources to be utilized in that regard. So, identify resources and strategies that can work across schools to create efficiencies in implementing needs assessments across schools buildings. What are those resources and strategies that can fit more than just one school, but schools across the district? Since it is noted that they have the common priorities, what better way to work together? Provide assistance and communication to stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, and community members regarding needs assessments and activities. That collaboration and support doesn't stop within your school or even within your district. Reach out to your community members, your business partners, and make sure that they are essential in the collaboration efforts. That creates awesome buy-in within your areas that you're in. It helps you to move the needle along. Provide professional learning and support on using data to inform the development of the school improvement plans. There's no need to conduct a needs assessment to store the data gathered on a shelf. The data should be instrumental in developing school improvement plans. It should be instrumental in every single thing that you do so that you can move the needle. Connect schools with available statewide systems of support, including external facilitators and high quality professional development. The collaboration and support may need more than just what your district can provide. As a state agency, as Pat said, we're willing to assist in any part of this process. Our team is willing to help support you or provide assistance, whether it is system assistance that we may facilitate or assistance that we may broker, whatever additional professional development that we can provide, we're willing to do that. Participate in and listen to the conversations related to building level needs assessment to develop a more nuanced understanding of each school's results. At the end of the day, you're here for your school and your students. And by having those in-depth, enriched conversations about your building, it can help you to understand what you need to do next. Determine how school level data may be aggregated at the district level to assist in ongoing data collection and tracking efforts. Create opportunities for networking and collaboration across schools that are engaging in concurrent needs assessments in order to foster peer learning. Talk to schools about ways to reduce the potential burdens of needs assessments and model use of the needs assessments as a lever for change rather than just the instrument of compliance. Pat said it at the beginning. We no longer want just compliance. We want you to move further to quality and to engagement. This needs assessment isn't just about being compliant. It's not about something else to do. It needs to be used as a change agent for continuous school improvement. So, if you were in attendance to Basil and Lynn's presentation on Monday, they introduced our new web portal that's constructed by the innovation and support team. And even though it's not live yet, it is to come. But a component of this website includes resources pertaining to needs assessment and root cause analysis. So if we go there, it will show you the resources that you will have access to. And these are just some of the resources now, but once it becomes live, there are a couple of others. We will have the guide, the process guide for improvement provides an overview of evidence-based school improvement planning process and helpful tools to use during each phase of the needs assessment and planning process. Then we have the Cognia resource. Many districts and schools are accredited by Cognia and may also use their continuous improvement services. It will also include a root cause analysis overview and the tools needed to assist with conducting a root cause analysis, as well as an improvement science tool, which includes a fishbone diagram template, also used to identify root causes for a problem. So these are just a few resources that this particular website will have that you will have access to once it goes live. We're not sure of when the date will be yet, but it will hopefully be within the next couple of months. And once it goes live, you will be able, anyone will be able to access it because it will be, web-based. So as Pat stated, the resources that we used to, this is the resource library, also a part of the website. And with the resource library, you're able to do searches for specific topics or even for specific audiences to see what type of resources we have identified for you, whether it's educational organizations, whether it's virtual instruction, it can even be social emotional learning. There are multiple links and resources that we have already organized that will be at your fingertips. And lastly, our resources that we have used in order to plan this presentation, we have the South Carolina School Improvement Framework, the plan and process adopted by the South Carolina Department of Education to ensure high-level learning for all students at all schools in South Carolina. We used a process guide for improvement, which is an overview of evidence-based school improvement planning process and helpful tools to use during each phase of the needs assessment and planning process. And finally, the needs assessment guidebook, which is an overview of needs assessment process with numerous resources and references to support districts and schools to develop a successful school improvement plan. And this is the end of our presentation. This is our innovation and support team. We have Basil Harris, which is our team lead, myself, Devetta Bradley, Mr. Pat, and I'm learning his name, Sakatelli, and Miss Lynn Hammond, in addition to Miss Destiny Cheney and Mr. Eric Brunson, who's an IT person. Do we have any questions at this time? If you're still muted, you can put your questions in the chat box and we'll go from there. I see a couple that one that was already in there, and Mr. Harris answered it for us. Will districts be informed when the website goes live? Yes, districts will be informed, as he stated. Any other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, this concludes our, okay, I think I have one. Do you already have the critical needs assessment tool created?
I can jump in on that one, Devetter.
Okay.
The comprehensive needs assessment tool has not been created yet. Well, I mean, we have one. It's an executive summary with there is some guidance. Again, so the good news is open-ended, but we're working on that and we'll be releasing that sometime down the road. A little bit more of a framework and a more guided process, but could certainly meet with districts and talk to them about it if they want support or a tool to use in the meantime.
Any other questions?
Let's see, Basil's replying as well.
The INS team is working on a comprehensive needs assessment framework and guided process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if that is all, we would like to thank you all for attending our session on today. We hope that some information was provided that would be of great assistance to you. Again, you have our team information. If you need to reach out to any of us to provide assistance in whatever way we can, we'll make sure that it is done. And thank you for attending, and you have a great day.